Assalamu alaikum, dear friends. Here again with another edition of the Think Tank Talk. Today we are going to focus once again on Pakistan's economy, not in good condition, and that is borne out by the latest figures that have been tabled before the National Accounts Committee. It's a pretty dismal picture that comes out of those figures. And why is this? How long can Pakistan sustain this state of affairs? For this, we have with us today Mr. Haroon Sharif, a known economist, development economist, has been with the World Bank and various other institutions. So right now, thank you very much, Haroon Saab, for sparing your time, and would like to basically focus on the latest figures. National Accounts Committee, this is a technical forum which we here collects and collates the data in a very professional way. It is like under a methodology that is acknowledged world over, and the findings for the Pakistan economy are not good. What does it mean for Pakistan, for the tens of millions of Pakistanis in the next 6 months to 1 year?
Well, thank you very much. You're absolutely right that, if the word I use, that economy's indicators have nosedived. And particularly if I look at the key indicators that, almost negative GDP growth. It's been told that it's slightly positive 0.29, but, it's almost negative from 6% of last year. 6% last year, Mtasa, was not sustainable, but not to this level. So we have mismanaged it. Then when you look at the manufacturing sector, almost, totally reversed, gone into negative. Services sector, agriculture sector. I can understand, I have sympathy because of floods and other things. But then it is the job of economic managers to balance it out, to give. Now, what does it mean? Very quickly. We have a population in the new census around 250 million people. This means our per capita income has gone down. Inflation is touching 50%, particularly on the food and consumables, meaning people's consumable income will be less than half. 2.5 million young boys and girls come into the labor market every year. With this growth, you can only cater hardly 200,000. So where would 2.3 million young people go when there are no jobs for them? The vulnerable sector among the poverty line, which is struggling, hovering around, there will be huge pressure on them, and I fear they will fall below the poverty line. Now, what worries me is that it's an extraordinarily alarming situation for a country in South Asia that the numbers are basically number 2 after Sri Lanka. Okay? We keep on claiming that we will not default for a few months. What difference does it make if you can hold on for a few months only? So my take is that this actually now requires an extraordinary response. You look at politics much deeper, I don't see any concrete hope of a response coming.
This is what I wanted to actually ask you. Does our political leadership really realize the gravity of the situation, the gravity that we are in, and the seriousness that is required now, this extraordinary seriousness that we require to fix things?
That question puzzles me. That if I am looking at, at the table of economic management, why am I not taking remedial measures? To my knowledge or my understanding of political economy of Pakistan, there are 3 things. Number 1 is that perhaps there's clarity that constituency-based democracy is not required. You can actually maneuver into power. So once you don't have the power of vote in front of you, so you will not care for the ordinary people. You will actually do the other power games. Second is the lack of sheer understanding Third is for years a belief or a perpetual denial that someone will come and bail us out. Still a hope. Oh, don't worry, we are too big to fail. We are a huge Muslim country. We are a nuclear power. I think in this denial, this free fall is becoming more imminent because look at, rupee has no certainty. Why would an investor invest in this country from outside if the value of his investment is going to be halved in a few years' time? He or she cannot repatriate their profits. So I think the trust has eroded. The official business confidence indices of State Bank and Overseas Chamber of Commerce are at all-time low. My feeling is that this government is not giving a response, that they are only looking for another 3 months to stay in power.
Yes, only because of political expedience, they are not giving it the required attention. Now, how does it relate to the new business opportunities, investment? Does it really relate to the erosion of confidence and what the point number one that you made, this swing coming into power without really realizing or giving a damn to the constituency, the voters, basically the people are not at the center of this policy. So how does it now relate to the ease of doing business, rule of law, for example, if you could just flesh this out a little bit?
Investors, be it domestic or international, they look for three things. First is, number one and the foremost, is a policy and a consistent policy. Second is property rights or contract enforcement, which is rule of law. Linked to that is the physical security in the environment where we live in. And the third is the ability to resolve disputes. We have unfortunately consistently failing in all three counts. So we really don't have to blame them, we have to blame ourselves. Now, missed opportunities, it's a sad tale. There is liquidity around us. China wanted to do relocation of companies. We couldn't make economic zones in time and of that standard. Saudi Arabia wanted to buy out power plants or set up, new alternate energy things. We could not really even come up with a feasibility study. Qatar wanted to take a stake in the airports. Now, we have to look back that now that's a critical question. Whenever we engage with a country or an investor who wants to help us out through investment, we end up taking a loan instead. So we went for bailout packages instead.
All the time.
All the time with friendly countries. They said, we want to invest. We said, no, please give us loans. So we somehow have stopped really working hard to convince our partners that we are as credible as Cambodia or Bangladesh or Vietnam. Money is going everywhere because economies of West are very slow. One number might surprise you. The global economic revival, if it takes place in next couple of years, 70% of the revival will come from Asia.
70%.
70%. 50% of that will come from India and China. Now we are sitting there. My question would be how to make Pakistan relevant to that, prosperity. We are isolated and everybody is looking at other jurisdictions to be part of that game.
But how do we make Pakistan relevant with the current governance regime, in which it's more like whimsical, it's more personality centric, there is no real long-term focus?
At the moment, power structure is all about perks and privileges. Power structure is not about welfare or economic development. My solution, the jurisdictions I have seen, is that if we continue working the way we are, it will only get worse. In fact, it might get into an unfortunate free fall. What our politicians need to, or the power brokers need to understand is that you set up not everything under the sun, just few priorities. which are bleeding this country.
This is you have been talking about very often, you know.
Consistently. Set up few priorities, isolate or insulate them from politics, and give it to a group who knows how to do business. You mentioned ease of doing business. At the end of the day, the investors and people want to talk to people who speak their language. They don't want to talk to somebody who's looking for their cuts. They don't want to talk to somebody who is basically saying that I know everything. In reality, you don't know anything. So you delegate it to them. Show the world that Pakistan is now at least serious to learn and do things. At the moment, the message is that neither we want to learn, nor we are willing to do things. We are only looking for bailouts and miracles.
Yeah, but why should any investor come into a country which has a reputation or which is notorious for backing out of contracts, for violating contracts, and you have considerable number of cases, almost 36, probably in international arbitration. So how does that relate to this lofty rhetoric that this is a country full of opportunities, one window operation, Himalayas and this and that, so all four weathers. So how do you explain this?
If I had a choice, I would actually put this so-called Article 6 on people who shatter investor confidence, because that is linked to the fate of millions of Pakistanis. Because an unhappy investor will stop another 10 from coming to your jurisdiction.
This is what I wanted you to just explain a little bit why. You know?
My question is that how do we make investors a priority? Unfortunately, in the incentive structure of politics and bureaucracy, you cannot, because they still look for patronage and crony capitalism. That's what I'm trying to say, that take it out and delegate. And jurisdictions have done it. Dubai has done it, Qatar has done it, Kazakhstan has done it.
Saudi Arabia is doing it.
Even these places, they have insulated it and delegated it to new places where investors don't see the government. If you go to Sialkot Imtiaz Sahab, and that's a success story within this environment. They export everything. The only one thing they attribute to their success is that they don't want to see the government. They don't want to talk to the government. They are saying, don't bother us. So Pakistan needs to let go and let markets function. There is talent, there is managerial capability in private space, but nobody trusts the government. Now it will take a long time for state to regain that trust, but you can have small islands of delegated space where people can build some trust. It's unfortunately, I don't think any short-term transformational change will come. We'll have to struggle for it for quite many years.
But what has placed India and Bangladesh at a different level compared to Pakistan?
Only two things. Number one, that investment and business became a political priority. Number two, they gave incentives and policies and stuck to it, no matter who comes into power, so that people had confidence that things will, with a phase changes, it will not be reversed. And number three, they set only couple of priorities. They did not promise dreams which one could not, populist dreams, which nobody can deliver in the current world. So just set up 2-3 priorities. If you want export, pick up IT and one sector and focus on that, okay? You want to get rid of state of enterprise, you just need 2 lines. That state has no business to do business. You don't say that, okay, we'll sell this after 20 years, we'll stop it, you know. Make it simple. Investors and people like jurisdictions which make it simple, make it clear, make policies and incentives which compete with other jurisdictions. For that, Pakistan is nowhere at the moment. On the closing, I will say, I think we should forget about revival of growth at the moment. It is the stoppage of this nosedived economy first, and then revive, and then growth comes. So we need to be patient and we need to be consistent.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, we need to be consistent. We need to be also clear in this age that business is not done by governments. Governments world over are not in business anymore. All the governments can do is to oversee business expansion, investment, create ease of doing business for foreign investors, and depoliticize the entire business of business and investment. Without that, it will be extremely difficult for a country like Pakistan to attract investment and also to build upon it. We really need a transformation in the thinking of the political leadership in Pakistan.